Welcome to the immediate preseason edition of Sharing Sox. I'm Southside Sox duty geezer Leigh Allan. With me, my son and West Coast correspondent Will. I have on my Abreu shirt. He has on his Blue Sox hat. I have a 1948 Sox hat, which I guess ages me a little bit in there. We're ready to go. We're recording this Wednesday at noon. Season opens Thursday. Sox season opens Friday in Detroit, where there is some chance of rain, but it doesn't look like enough to make the game not go. Lucas Giolito is supposed to be out there. You know, it's an interesting thing of that. If they go in anticipated order, you're going to have Giolito, Cease, who has pitched very, very little in spring training and didn't get the usual 5 days before appearance. I hope that's meaningless. Maybe he was. I just don't know why he wasn't there. I thought that he would end up being coming in after Kopech on Tuesday, so they each get a round of it. But no, Kopech on Sunday, and that would mean for the home opener next Tuesday, where the weather's not horrible either, low 50s, some rain. It would presumably be Dallas Keuchel.
Oh,
That's getting the home fans enthused early.
and then who's next in the rotation? Vince Velasquez.
Velasquez, or my preference would be Lopez. I pitched Lopez ahead of Velasquez, but
From what I saw on Twitter this morning, which I'm not even sure who it was, it might have been Scott Merkin, had Velasquez as the fifth starter. I don't know.
Merkins just writes what they tell him to. So
Yeah, so I think that's what we're looking at. They had Giolito, Cease, Kopech, Keuchel, Velasquez. So that could be a very rough first homestand. The Sox, well, first let's say, we're excited baseball's back. Also want to point out that despite the geezer having a hat from 1948, I'm going to go ahead and let our listeners know that you did not get the hat in 1948. You were 2 years old in 1948, but that hat, you're not as old as you made it sound based on the year of the hat.
Like I wore this to opening day. Then.
But yes, baseball is back. Very exciting. Start with the Tigers on the road, 3 games. I think the White Sox schedule is tough to start the year, especially with some of the injuries we'll talk about in a little bit. But, starting on the road in Detroit is not a gimme. It's not a gimme. I mean, I think Detroit is going to win 86, 87 games. I think they're going to be good.
We will later get into it. I've got 538's numbers. They just came out this morning with their predictions, which oddly enough have the White Sox winning the division, as does everybody on the universe. Although they're only say 56% chance, despite having them 9 games ahead of or 8 games ahead of the closest competition.
Right, yeah, I've got that up too. They've got 56% chance to win the division, 73% chance to make the playoffs. That feels low to me. They got them at 7% chance to win the World Series, and they're
which is nice.
Expecting a 91 and 71 record.
And just a 73-89 for the Tigers, who you'd think would be quite a bit improved. They've done a lot.
I don't see a world where the Tigers are only going to win 73 games, just because, they've got Cleveland ahead of the Tigers, actually, which I disagree with completely. They've got Cleveland at 78 games.
And incidentally, that Cleveland just extended Ramirez, so we get to face him for another 35 years.
I know. They gave him over $100 million contract, which now gets us down to 4 teams that have never offered or signed anyone for over $100 million. And one of the 4.
Well, we know that.
Yeah, we know that. But as I was saying, I think the White Sox have a pretty tough schedule to start things off. It is not a comfortable start to the season. They're not going to get the Royals a ton right away or the Twins a ton. It's going to be a lot of pretty challenging games early on. There's a few easy ones, but I I think it's going to be really, really tough to sort of blast out of the gate in a way that maybe we would have expected based on how we played in the division last year. I think the division's actually quite a bit better this year. Not necessarily can knock us out of contention better, but there definitely has been major improvements on pretty much every other team, or at least holding on to some really key players.
Like Minnesota, in addition to some additions that they made, although they still need pitching rather desperately, I hadn't thought about it until the last few days. Byron Buxton is back.
Yeah.
And that's the heart and soul of that team. I
You
think
got
some
Byron
places where he was
Buxton.
predicted to be the MVP.
Yeah, you've got Byron Buxton, who, if he stays healthy, is one of the best players in the game. And now you have Carlos Correa batting behind him. And that is nasty. That is not, and I realize you need more than two guys, but it is definitely a very different offensive team than they were last year. I would argue the Tigers very much improved, and also just an incredible core of young guys. I mean, they
one of whom broke his foot last week, or it would be an even more incredible core.
Yeah, true. And then the Tigers also have a pretty interesting young rotation that is going to be really tough. The Royals, not as much of a threat. I don't think I see the Royals losing a lot. However, they did add Greinke. They do,
Bobby Witt Jr.
have Bobby Witt Jr. coming up, which I think is going to be very interesting to see how he does. Again, you can't win with two guys, but I don't think they are going to be as much of a pushover as they were last year. Certainly, very easy team to beat last year. Cleveland, I think, we are better than that lineup, no doubt, but you still have to face Shane Bieber. And, they
Carrasco and
Carrasco. And they do have some bats, especially by re-signing. There was that brief window yesterday where it looked like maybe Jose Ramirez was going to go to the Padres. And that has since passed, and he is with Cleveland. I would have loved to have seen him go to the Padres. I was really hoping he was going to go to the Padres. But now you got to face a Cleveland team that's not entirely depleted. We certainly thought that, they were going to clean house even more than they did. But I guess if you have Shane Bieber, you're always kind of in contention.
For a given game, anyway.
In it for once every 5 days for sure. But I'll be interested to see how this starts. So we have Giolito going to start off the season, which is what it really should have always been. There was a little talk yesterday that they were considering Cease. And then, of course, Lynn was probably the most likely opening day starter other than Giolito. But that injury is hugely problematic. But before we talk about that, we'll talk about injuries and whatnot after the break, I think. Let's go back and talk about these predictions. So we've got 538's got the Dodgers sort of running away with everything. They're giving them a 19% chance to win the World Series, which is very high. Next highest is going to be the Braves. And then we get to the American League. The Yankees, Blue Jays, Astros, all predicted ahead of the White Sox. What do you think about that?
I'm not shocked. A lot of places are predicting that all three wildcard teams will come out of the East. And even though they have to play each other so much that it brings their records down, this is a good season for the Sox to be. We talk about the window opportunity with regard to ages of players and whatnot. This is the window before they go to the balanced schedule, which is not going to help the White Sox at all. So this is the last time to play 76 games against the AAA Central.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking at the AL East, which is always stacked, but now it seems maybe the most stacked it's been in recent memory, with the Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, and Red Sox all coming in that top 10 teams mark, which is really insane if you think about it, to have 4 teams from one division predicted in the top 10.
Poor little Baltimore.
I know Baltimore. Let's see. They're dead last.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Baltimore. I think now seeing that the number one thing I want to happen this season is Baltimore winning the AL East. I think I will cheer for Baltimore harder than I've ever cheered for Baltimore before to win the AL East. Uh, the White Sox, they have sixth on this list. As we said before, 91 wins predicted with a run differential of plus 90. What do you think about that 91 win mark?
Given the early where we're starting without Lynn, and yes, and we need to talk about the new guys. They got Johnny Cueto on a minor league contract, which I was surprised he was still around. I'm surprised since he took a minor league contract. I'm surprised somebody else didn't get him for a minor league contract because yes, 2019, 2020, horrible. Last year, not bad. I mean, he had a 4.07 ERA for the Giants. That's okay. It's kind of a crafty righty. Can eat some innings. So he's there and available. I don't know that it covers the Lynn situation well because it's going to be a month before he's ready or close to it. And then they have to substitute him in for somebody. By then, Vince Velasquez should have played his way out of the majors, so take care of that. But
how soon do you think we'll see Cueto? Because he's not major league ready right now, right? He hasn't been doing anything.
I would say May 1st be a good.
Yeah, so
good
essentially a full month, which gives us 3 or 4 Velasquez starts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you got to figure Cueto probably at 2 weeks just warming up, kind of early spring training, pitchers and catchers report kind of thing. Pitching probably to Seve Zavala in North Carolina. And then probably a couple of weeks to have 2 or 3 starts in Charlotte. So I May 1st may be ambitious. It may be a week later than that. But yeah, we'll have some Velasquez starts and or Lopez starts, depending on how Velasquez does. And maybe both of them, because Kopech doesn't look like a guy who's going to pitch very long in a game.
No.
Not yet. He has not had a good spring and has not gone very long in any of the games he's been in. Really, the best spring has been Dylan Cease, but he's pitched very little. I think only 7 innings.
I think there's a big concern, which you and I always have this concern. But I think a huge concern for me right now is can any of these guys go more than 5 innings?
Well, I don't think they're going to be expected to.
Well, last year, you would have thought that as well. And then they pitched the hell out of these guys in April, and they were all out of gas in September. We'll see. I'm very interested to see because, as you said, we've got Velasquez, we've got Lopez, we've got Cueto now, we've got Kopech. None of them, I think, can pitch an entire a healthy start. I don't think any of them are getting to 8 innings or 7 innings in a game. Are we going to see a lot more of 3 of this pitcher, 3 of this pitcher, 3 of this pitcher? Will we have more games like that?
3-by-3 rule.
Yeah, which is not a bad idea with what we have right now, considering, the position we find ourselves in. And we'll take a break here in a second, and we'll come back and talk about that a little bit more. But I kind of see a world where we don't really have 5 starters for a while, and we have sort of 7-ish that share a lot of those last 2 games. Because Keuchel, we know, is not going to eat innings. Even though he was our eat innings guy, he's not going to eat any innings. He's gonna have a little appetizer of innings, I think, most of the time, and then give up 4 runs in the third and be out of the game. Cease, I have no expectation of him getting past the 5th inning ever because he just throws so many freaking pitches. Giolito's
Except
the one
against
guy
Detroit, which is kind enough to swing at all of them, so he doesn't throw as many.
Giolito, of course, we know can go the distance, but also throws a ton of pitches. I'm very, I don't want to say concerned about this, but we are in a really bad spot in terms of pitching to start this season.
But they get a new guy to pitch to when Yaz isn't back there with Reese McNeil.
Yeah.
Uh,
So tell me how you feel about
McGuire,
that. This is your backup catcher moment right here.
yes. Uh, uh, Interesting choice, but it worked out real well because Toronto just needed to get rid of him. They were loaded with catchers and he had no options left. So White Sox were there to pick up the pieces. Good work, Rick Hahn, to be the one there because it could have been anybody picking up the pieces. And we got rid of Zack Collins. We no longer have to
Oh,
spend many, many games watching our catcher run back and pick up the ball at the backstop while runners trot around the bases. Um, but McGuire is
I
supposed to
can't
be.
believe that we are sitting here on April 6th and we don't have Craig Kimbrell and Zach Collins. Can't believe it. Can't
Oh no,
believe it.
that's the other huge move by Rick Hahn. But I think McGuire will be great. He's a good framer. He's good at throwing people out. He's good at catching the ball. Not a big hitter, but our guys didn't hit either. I mean, the hitting is not the important thing for your backup catcher. It's catching the damn ball. Supposed to have a good reputation with pitchers, not such a good reputation in parking lots, but that's another matter. We just keep them out of parking lots for the course of the season. Um, but yeah, man, it should be much better situation, and Grandal can take more days off to DH or play first or whatever.
Grandal
Uh,
has he's been very vocal this week. I don't know if you've been following that he wants to be behind the plate as much as possible early on, which I actually think is a really great idea, and I think it's a good team mentality versus self mentality. Is that he said, it's just straight up hard to come from another team and just be a pro catcher for the pitchers right away. This guy's not caught really any of these White Sox pitchers ever. And Grandal has said, I would like to be behind the plate every day until he feels acclimated to the team. Uh, I think that's kind of a good idea. Let Grandal sort of get these first few series behind the plate. Let Reese, what's his butt, get acclimated to the team a little bit, and then start giving Grandal a lot more time off as the season goes. Time off from catching, that is, and have him DH. But it was nice to hear that Grandal is excited. We will talk about some other things he said involving injuries when we come back. We should take our break right here. But I just want to say congrats to the geezer on finally getting a backup catcher that seems like a at least reasonable option.
and we have a right fielder too. I mean, it's amazing. I give Hahn credit for that. How he got out of that Kimbrel mess. I don't know. Kimbrel went to his first game with the Dodgers to give up 5 runs in the first inning.
Oh, Kimbrel went. We've got all these people on Sox Twitter being like, "I expect a resurgence from Kimbrel for the Dodgers," and I'm just like, "Why? Why?" Like so many people, good guy, but James Fox just saying, I'm glad Kimbrel's going to resurge with the Dodgers. I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's not. Why would he? And why do you care if he does? We don't care. He's not with us. We need Pollock to have a resurgence. He's on our
Pollock
team now.
doesn't need a resurgence. He was
Yeah,
quite
that's true.
excellent last year.
He just needs to stay healthy. But yes, I think, while we didn't get any of the huge marquee signings we were looking for in the offseason, I do think they strung together something kind of interesting and did a miraculous job unloading Kimbrel and then also getting rid of Collins for something that we need. I mean, we traded Collins for a better version of Collins. So that's a pretty great trade, straight up. But we should take our break here. We'll come back. We'll talk about Lynn. We'll talk about Crochet a bit more. It was still kind of up in the air last time we talked, and it is no longer up in the air. So we'll take a quick break here, and we will be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. We kind of talked about 538's outlook on the season, some of our outlook. We talked about our new backup catcher, which is very exciting. We have our new right fielder and AJ Pollock, who I've always liked as a player, and if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and the one thing I think with Pollock, the one negative, and I think there are just a lot of positives that outweigh the negative, is that runners on base, are just going to continue to run on the Sox like crazy. They did it last year. Eloy's got no arm and left. They almost will go from second to third with Eloy standing on the infield dirt with the ball.
I'm gonna correct you though. Now that we have the pronunciation guide, it is Eloy.
Well, Eloy is standing on the dirt. They'll go, and worse than that, he tends to do way up in the air. Pollock's reputation is no arm, good fielder, no arm, and Luis has a hell of an arm, but he has this tendency to see if he can knock a satellite out of the sky on the way into the infield. And he just needs to get to where he throws on a line, maybe occasionally hits a cutoff man. So they're going to keep running on our outfield. That's a real
no doubt about that. Yeah. The only person to even really question running on is Robert, and it's like you said, it's a 1 in 10 chance that thing's going to be on point. But he's also, I think, he's getting better every year. He's just going to keep getting better. He's
my MVP. He's my team MVP.
Like a tank. He looks like an absolute tank this year. I think he could be the American League MVP.
Could be.
He is one of those guys where I think people slept on him a little bit lately, where you and I have not. We have been like, this guy is the thing for and not that anyone has said Luis Robert's not good, but I think we are now about to see the hype. I think we're about to see him absolutely dominate this season, which will be so fun to watch. We are dealing with a couple crucial injuries. Let's talk about those. The first being Lance Lynn, which we've hinted at earlier, and I'm sure the listeners know that Lance Lynn is hurt. He's got this partially torn meniscus, as we were talking about before the podcast, similar to what Lonzo Ball is dealing with on the Bulls. They have shut Lonzo down for the season. When do you think we see Lance?
Well, I also was listening. I happened to be, when I was going to get groceries, I was listening to the score, and whoever was on for the score was saying he's followed these kinds of injuries many times, especially with basketball players, because they have to turn so much and then their knees get wrecked up. And he says, you don't know. He says many times they go in for surgery and they think it's going to be simple, and it's not. And it could be that he gets back in late May, which is the hope right now, I believe, which would be 6 or 7 weeks probably that he's out. But sometimes it's months. I mean, several months. And then you got to play back in and go to Charlotte for a couple of weeks and whatnot. So just don't know with Lynn, which is why Cueto could become a value, because even if he can't pitch until second week of May or something, that could be a month ahead or 6 weeks ahead of when Lynn can be back. And
100%.
Trust me, Velasquez is just nuts.
Yeah, and I mean, not that I expect Johnny Cueto to come in and absolutely destroy, but if he can throw with an ERA around 4, that would be extremely helpful. And occasionally he still shows flashes of brilliance. So I'm excited about that signing, just as something I'm on the very pessimistic end about this injury for Lynn. I could be totally wrong, but just because of his size and his stature, that injury and the way that he puts pressure on that knee while pitching,
it's the leg you push off on. So
I mean, we've got to hope that in surgery that is just the smallest, most minuscule tear in the history of meniscus tears, because anything beyond that, and I think you lose Lance Lynn for most of this season. I mean, that is a really bad spot to have a tear as a Major League Baseball player, especially a pitcher, because he's got a lot of body weight and he is putting all of it into that knee. I hope for the best, Lance. I know you listen to this podcast regularly. Feel better, get better, heal. We need you. But I do not have high hopes for a quick return for Lance Lynn.
Let's go to the bullpen, because we're talking about most of the starters aren't going to go very far, and that's true. That's not a Sox problem. That's a Major League's problem. And then maybe we particularly have some starters that won't go long. Sox solved the problem. They have added Tanner Banks to the roster
Love
for
him.
opening
Love his
day.
work. Love his
He's
work.
finally in the majors after 9 years in the minor leagues. He's a lefty. He had a pretty good spring. 18th round draftee in 2014. So good for him. And Kyle Crick, who has been in the majors on and off for a number of years. He's 30 years old. He had a hell of a spring. 6 innings, 1 hit, 2 walks, no runs. I hope he was facing major leaguers at the time. That's what we'll find out when he gets to play. But that, of course, Banks particularly needed because Garrett Crochet is gone for the year and probably most of next year as well.
Yeah, the Garrett Crochet loss, which I think we all sort of saw coming, even as far back as that playoff series against Oakland in 2020 in the shortened season, when he had to leave the game early because of what he was feeling here. That's always a terrible sign in young pitchers.
And his motion is scary. If you're worried about his health, his motion is scary.
Yeah,
I know they tried to slow it down, calm it down. Ethan Katz is really good at getting guys to work with their body. He did wonders with Rodon. Bye, Carlos. And that was helping. I mean, he was obviously more in control of the ball, but of himself as he was pitching. But so much strain had been put on that elbow already that it was a goner.
Yeah, I mean, I feel awful for Crochet. I think he has been mismanaged and thrown into big situations in which adrenaline would cause you to overthrow. I think he's been mismanaged pretty poorly.
Mismanaging at the White Sox?
Have you heard of it?
That's the right team?
Yeah, I know that it doesn't make sense given they have a Hall of Fame baseball person coach, but
which is why, incidentally, I'm predicting 88 wins instead of 91 because I think the HOFBP will lose 3. I just hope he doesn't lose.
He'll lose 3.
I just hope
very kind.
I just hope he doesn't lose the playoffs by exhausting the starting pitchers. That's the big worry.
Well, and of course, it's a good sign since one of them's already out, and the reliever, our potentially best reliever, is speaking about Grandal being very vocal this week. He also said something that I thought was extremely complimentary of Crochet. He said, guys don't talk about a lot of pitchers and being impressed by a lot of pitchers. It's just not a lot of talk around the league about that kind of thing. And he said Garrett Crochet is a guy people talk about. Because
you seen, because I have not, speaking of best reliever, have you seen that? Because Hendricks had a spring, but with pitchers, especially relievers, only in an inning or so, it doesn't necessarily mean anything at all, but it could. Have you seen anything where somebody's saying, oh yeah, he's just been working on a forkball, or?
I haven't. I feel like I heard him talk about it in like a very early interview in spring training that they were looking at adding another pitch, which I don't think will really work or happen, but that might be what that's about. Other than that, though, I'm not very concerned about Hendricks.
I'm not really either, but I'd be curious as to what the reason for it has been. Well, he might just be working on placement.
Yeah,
I've had a hard time low and inside. I got to work on low and inside, whatever, because he's walked a lot of people. He walked as many people this spring as last year.
Yeah, which is definitely a sign for a guy who essentially throws 2 pitches. So it definitely makes it sound like there's new things in the works, because he wouldn't have just lost control of those 2 pitches that dramatically, that he's walking all those guys. He's clearly working on something. I don't know what it is. I hope whatever it is ends up working, because if he had a 3rd pitch, that is great. I think batters are in deep doo-doo.
They're in deep doo-doo with 2.
It's bad enough with 2, but if he gets a 3rd one, I don't even know what people are going to do.
Graveman, unhittable.
Yeah.
Spring. Bummer, excellent. Yeah, I think he had 1 bad outing, but basically just fine. Kelly, we don't know when he's going to pitch.
Yeah. I have no clue on Kelly. I think we're in a really good spot for the last 3 innings of games that we have Graveman, Bummer, and Hendricks, which kind of brings us back full circle to what we talked about earlier on the podcast, which is, can any pitcher get past the fifth? And that's where I think we run into big problems. If our starters cannot get us most of the time to those 3 guys, I think we're in a lot of trouble, because the middle relief options, which are some of the starters we talked about, are honestly middle relief options at this point still. I I'm not seeing. I'm seeing a lot of games that could be blown open in the fifth if the starter's out and we can't get to Graveman, Bummer, and Hendricks yet. Not that those guys will always have to pitch that late, but you ideally will save those guys for later in the game so they can sort of shut it down after you have a lead.
And in close games.
And in close games, which, hopefully our offense, which does, on paper at least look like it's going to be pretty awesome. Hopefully we don't have a lot of close games early on, but it's baseball. You're going to have close games. Yeah, I'm very, very concerned about sort of these guys who can eat up those middle innings when our starters are out after throwing 250 pitches through the first 4. And Crochet was a huge part of that. Kelly also a huge part of that. Crochet obviously gone for good this year, and Kelly we don't really know.
Have you heard anything when they expect him back? It was just he won't be ready for opening day. That doesn't tell you much.
Yeah.
We won't, because I mentioned they haven't put out the 10 or 60 day lists yet, so we don't know if Kelly's even going to be on the IL or what his situation is.
Yeah,
an excellent pitcher if he's healthy.
Yeah, and I mean, a very streaky pitcher, and he really needs to be at full health to bring his best game. We've seen him whenever he is not at 100%, he is not great. So whatever it is that's plaguing him, I hope he can bounce back from it very quickly and be at 100% ready to go, because I would love for him to be pitching in the first series against the Twins, so we can have him start a brawl with Carlos Correa. That, I think, that's got to be the reason you sign him, is you see the Twins are going to get Correa, and you're like, oh, well, then we got to get Kelly, because we got to get some fist fights going. They want that younger audience to be tuning into baseball. Well, fist fights between Correa and Joe Kelly is what's going to get it done. We are sort of running out of time here. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on?
You haven't made your prediction yet.
Oh, my prediction on how many wins the Sox will have?
Yeah.
I am going to go a little higher than 538's prediction. I am going to say 95 wins.
That's more than just about anybody's prediction. I think the highest one I saw anywhere was 93.
I know. I'm a very bold person. I give nothing but delicious hot takes, and this is my hot take today. I think the White Sox win 95 games, and I think that is solely powered by an insane offensive output. We will, I'm sure, at some point have a nasty streak of not being able to hit anything like we did last year, but if we can stay healthy, which Lord knows we are going to see maybe all 9 starters go down with hamstring injuries at some point, because it seems like nobody watches anyone's strength and conditioning for the White Sox anymore. It seems like they're just told, like, come show up and be healthy.
We theoretically have a new guy who's supposed to be solving that.
Well, let's hope so. I'm going to predict the White Sox at 95 wins, and I feel confident in that prediction. I actually think it could be a couple higher, but I'm going to sit at 95 so that I can be pleasantly surprised when they win 97. Should we go ahead and make like a very bold, right before the first day World Series prediction? Who's going to play in it? Who's going to win? I think let's just do it real quick. Who do you got? World Series prediction before the first game of the year. What do you think it's going to be?
I have the White Sox to the ALCS, I think. I think they finally win a series.
Okay.
And they may have 2 series, right? Because if they're third best winning team, then they've got a round before they get to the divisional series. But I think they get to the championship series. I'm not going to predict any higher than that, because you do that, then there's no way to go in happiness. So we'll just end there.
Okay. And then who do you think will play in the World Series then?
Dodgers. I know that's the cheap pick, but Dodgers. Even though they will not have a closer, which will be interesting. They think they do, but they don't.
They sure don't.
And the Blue Jays. I just think the Blue Jays are just going to be really, really good.
All right. So you got Dodgers and Blue Jays. That's a pretty, I think, popular selection this year, which makes sense. The Blue Jays are going to be, talk about offenses that can destroy you. I am going to have a very different take than you.
Pirates and Orioles?
I also think, no, not quite. I also think the White Sox likely don't make it. I hope they do, and if they can stay healthy, I think they can. So I'm not predicting that the White Sox won't be in the World Series. I'm just saying, as of right now, I think ALCS. I am going to have the Mariners coming out of the American League.
We're gonna find out real early just what they've got.
Yeah.
We won't face the top of their rotation, because it'll be the same situation where their number 4 and 5 guys are here for the opening series. But I'm covering Thursday's game, a week from Thursday, and that should be Giolito and the top of the Mariners. So,
and my NL pick is not too interesting either. I'm going to take the Braves again. I think they lost Freddie Freeman, which was a huge loss, but they're going to get Ronald Acuna Jr. back. And I saw someone's bold prediction, which is that Acuna will lead the majors in home runs and stolen bases, and I think that will happen. I think Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be, if he's healthy, the NL MVP. So I've got Braves, Mariners as my World Series prediction, April 6th, 2022. Mark it down. Remember this, to all the Sox players who are listening to this podcast, to get pumped for opening day. We do believe in you. We do think you can win the World Series, and I can assure you, if you make it, we will be there. We will be there cheering you on. But that's
we've tried to be there before. It didn't work.
We've tried, but this time we'll make it
happen.
An
infinite number of people and an infinite number of computers, and we still never got it.
Still didn't get it, but this time we'll find a way. So that's all the time we have. Everyone, enjoy opening day of Major League Baseball, a day that a month ago we did not even know was going to happen. I'm so excited. I can't believe it. It's great. It's great. March Madness just ended. Great championship for March Madness. Congrats to the Jayhawks or whatever. But really great sports, bringing us into really exciting opening day for baseball. And I could not be more pumped to get back to the ballpark, eating hot dogs, crushing, for me, gluten-free brewskis. I know. But yeah, any final words, Geezer?
Play ball.
Play ball. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Sharing Sox.